Hi everyone, it's me Ursula, and I decided to make this video today because I was thinking that there's probably a lot of you out there like me who have a lot of scraps and sketches and things around your studio that you've been hanging on to. You don't want to throw them out yet, but you're just not sure what to do with them. So for example, I have a lot of things like this on paper from classes that I teach, demos on paint mixing or whatever, and I don't like to throw them out because there's fun, interesting things on them. And at the same time, I mean, what am I going to do with this, right? So I'm going to show you today how you could take some of your things and compile them into a mixed media project. To get started, you'll want to grab some art materials to have on hand to use today. So for starters, what I did is I went around my studio and I looked for scraps of paper, things that I had worked on that could be interesting to compile together. This is going to be my substrate. This is going to be the surface that I apply things to. It's a sturdy piece of paper. I'm using this because I'm not sure if I'm going to love this when it's done. If I do love it, I can always mount this onto a canvas later. Other supplies that you're going to need some brushes. You will need definitely some heavy gel medium, acrylic medium. So basically what this is paint with no pigment in it, and it's very strong. It's an adhesive. And then I have some paints on hand. I have titanium white because it's a very opaque paint. And then I have this color, quinacridone fuchsia, cobalt blue. I have some glitter because you never know when you're going to want glitter. I have a cutting X-Acto knife, scissors, and I also have a jar of water. Okay, first thing I want to do is I am going to prepare my surface. Now I'm just putting the paint right onto my surface here, onto my substrate. This is it's a dark pigment and it opens up quite a bit once you start painting with it. So I'm just going to use a little bit of that and a little bit of blue. I'm going to grab a big brush, use a little water, and start kind of working with the surface I already have, but just preparing a uniform surface for myself. So I like to use titanium white because it's an opaque white. So it covers really well if I ever need that. You can also use gesso. Gesso is a primer. I don't have any with me. It's spelled G-E-S-S-O. And what it does is it covers, it also is very opaque and it will cover a surface really easily. And a lot of artists use gesso because it will make a canvas less porous. So your paints can sit on the top a little bit easier. But what I'm doing, I'm just preparing this base, this substrate. And I'm going to adhere my other things to this. So for me personally, I'm not too worried about making it all blended, but if you want to do that, you can mix your paint right on your paper to blend it all up if you need to. So before I start working on this, I want it to dry. So I'm going to put it aside while that's drying. Now I'm going to look at the other things I have on hand here and think about creating a composition with them. So let's see here. I have this flower that I think I'll cut out. I have these scissors, this jar of water, maybe I'll cut that out. And I'll just start compiling some elements to go together into one single composition. Something I like to do a lot is take decorative elements from these papers and cut them out. So I might just cut one of these things out. I have a cutting knife, X-Acto knife here. This is really good for getting into the middle of things. So if I need to get into the middle of these scissors here, this is the thing to do that. Regular cutting shears are a little bit more difficult with that. I have been spending the last hour or so with different pieces of paper, with different elements, and just trying to create some kind of interesting composition for myself. I might not even use this. I kind of just like this. And maybe some flowers. You can also look at your negative shapes, the things that you cut out already around, in between. Some of those can be interesting to work with. Well, that's kind of interesting. Look at that. I keep grabbing this for my scissor, and it's not my scissor. What do you all think? Is that cooler? That could be a better backdrop. Maybe I should make it go through there. This is roughly my composition. So what I'm gonna do is take these things off for now. It might help. Sometimes people like to take a little photograph, you know, put your things down, take a picture, and then you have something to refer to. I find I usually don't do that. So I'm just gonna move this off to the side, and I'm gonna begin adhering this. Now, paint itself is an adhesive, and since the paint below was slightly tacky, all of this is actually kind of sticking on here better than I expected. But just to be on the safe side, I'm going to take some of my gel medium and adhere it to the back side of this. So if it helps you to make some kind of a mark that's going to show you where things go, do that. When you're doing any kind of gluing, you might want to have a piece of freezer paper or wax paper handy so you can turn your things around, very quickly adhere or brush that medium on there. Yeah, and since I'm adhering this to this painted surface, I'm not going to want to use Elmer's glue. This is actual paint, like I said earlier, so I want to use this to adhere things. So I have my lines set there for myself. If you're in a super bind and you don't have the heavy gel medium, you can use paint. You can actually use paint. However, be aware, because it's going to get on things. Sometimes when I'm adhering things, I need to put heavy objects on the corners because they start lifting up. All right, we're gonna put this one down. Is this how we said? And then we're gonna put this one down. And then we're gonna put this here. I'm gonna put it there maybe. See, because I sort of switched things around, now all of this has to get moved around. Glue this down. So sometimes what I do, because I get so excited, I just put the paper down good enough for what I need. And then when I'm done at the end, I glue down all the corners and, you know, do all the finishing touches to it. There's something about that that I'm not enjoying. I'm being bold. I'm going for it. Putting some white paint down. My problem I'm having is I want more contrast between this and that. So I've just grabbed some white paint. And I'm going to paint that down. Okay, so this is pretty much where I've ended up with this piece for now. Now, what happened is my camera turned off because I was working and I wasn't paying attention and the battery went dead. But basically where this all started to come together for me was when I cut through the actual piece, and you can see the cuts here. And then I went ahead and I adhered some foil to the back of it. So that's when it all sort of started to come together for me. Now there's some things that still need to get cleaned up with it, but let's say I want to take this now and adhere. Let's say I love this and I want to mount it to a canvas. That's going to be our next step in the process. But in the meantime, what I want to do is I want this to dry flat. So I'm going to take this. This has a nice cellophane wrapper. I'm going to put it down on here, and I'm going to put some weights on here and let this dry so that way it will flatten out. I have a old laptop that weighs about a ton that I'm going to set on top of this, and I'm going to let it dry for the next 5 or 6 hours just so it flattens out and everything adheres correctly. And until we paint again, have a blast in your studio.